More evidence to the growing theory that I don't know how to count. This is actually going to be the top 16 wide receivers. I will have a few honorable mentions because the receiver class is really, really good this year. And I feel like even with the honorable mentions, I'm still not even mentioning guys that I probably should be mentioning. So we were planning on doing a top 10 positional, but wide receivers just too stacked. There are too many good players. Had to talk about more. So this is going to be the top 16 receivers plus a few honorable mentions I'm going to mention now. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already for more NFL draft content, especially after the draft is over. I am streaming live on draft night on this channel, so make sure you're subscribed. We're going to be answering live draft questions, doing this whole draft show. Should be a really fun time, as it is every year. And then day 2 and 3 are probably going to be streamed over on my Twitch. That link is in the description as well, twitch.tv/Bengal. All updates will be on Twitter. Live reactions are going to be on Twitter probably as well. So if you can't tune into the live draft stream, I'll probably be tweeting out about each pick. That's twitter.com/Bengal. YouTube link also in the description. But let's go ahead and get into the top 16 receivers plus some honorable mentions. It is the strength of the draft class in what seems to be a very, very good class overall at a bunch of different positions. But wide receiver stands out high and above the rest. There are a lot of day one players that can be impact players immediately. I'm going to have the Clemson offense in the background while we talk about some of these guys, because the first guy I want to mention as an honorable mention is Cornell Powell. He's not the fastest receiver in the world. He's not even particularly explosive, but he's just really good technically. Route running is fine, and his hands are really, really good off the line as well. So he's going to be a guy who has the strength to beat press, and he's going to make these contested catches in traffic that will give him value. He's not going to be a wide receiver 1. Probably won't even be a wide receiver 2 on a lot of teams, but this is a guy that can be a 3rd and 4th receiver, even though he's not really a slot guy at all, but he can be like that 3rd and 4th receiver on a team that can make an impact and move the chains. A lot of these offenses have a guy like this, and Cornell Powell can be that guy. He's not really a top 15 receiver for me. I just don't think he's dynamic enough in a really good receiver class, but he's a chain mover, and there definitely is value to that. Seth Williams out of Auburn is another guy who's similar to Cornell Powell in the way that he's a chain mover, but he's more of a jump ball guy despite not having, crazy size. He's not really particularly big like a guy like Tamorrion Terry, who we'll talk about a little bit later, but he's a really good player. He struggled with terrible quarterback play at Auburn. I mean, Bo Nix is certainly nothing special, and Jarrett Stidham was not very good. The guys just really couldn't hit him accurately, which really limited the production and what you could see from Seth Williams, because he's not really a great route runner either. He's not super dynamic in any particular way, but he's a guy that has really good hands generally. He's going to move the chains because he's not going to drop the ball. I've seen maybe 1 or 2 drops ever when watching Seth Williams. He's definitely a good player. Another guy who's probably not going to be wide receiver number 1 or number 2 unless he evolves into this Kenny Golladay type player, because he's not really a true separator, but he's someone that can go up and catch the football and hang on to it through traffic, which again, certain value to that. Probably a late day 2 guy at the earliest, I would say, but still a good player. If you watch my most underrated draft prospects video, I talked about Demetric Felton. He doesn't make this list as a receiver. He wasn't going to make it as a running back, but he's a guy that projects pretty well. He's still new to the receiver position, and what he showed in Mobile at the Senior Bowl was particularly impressive as a route runner. He's a guy that is an easy separator from the slot. He's got really refined route running for someone that hasn't been playing the position too long. So given the right offense, Demetric Felton is a guy that can come in and play a hybrid running back wide receiver type role and line up in the slot. That's where he's going to make his money. And Felton could be a guy that produces a lot at the next level, depending on what team he goes to and how they want to use him. I say, Darren Sproles, use him like Darren Sproles, you're going to have a really good player, because he's a running back that has hands like a receiver, can run routes like a receiver, and he's not really this huge running back that's going to carry a weight load. But Demetric Felton definitely has a lot of potential. Shi Smith is another guy who impressed at the Senior Bowl and also suffered from poor quarterback play at South Carolina. He's another just slot weapon. Like, there are so many players in the class that kind of live under that type of role. Shi Smith is very good. I don't think he's as good of an athlete as some of the guys we're going to talk about a little bit later, even the next one on this list, who's a little bit of a smaller guy. But Shi Smith, again, just another slot guy that can make an impact with good routes and solid hands overall. The next 2 guys are similar type players. We're going to get over them pretty quickly. It's Jalen Darden out of North Texas, who just looked faster than every single person he went up against. He's going to be a deep threat / someone who's particularly good with the football after the catch. I like Jalen Darden quite a bit, but the level of competition brings him down a notch where you can't really tell if that speed's going to play the same way like it did at North Texas. And then Chatarius Tutu Atwell out of Louisville, who's a big-time deep threat but has no catch radius. His route tree is fairly limited. It's kind of a tough projection. He's someone that probably will be able to still get over the top, but he's also extremely small. He's only about 155 pounds, which obviously is a huge concern. It's not like it's Devonta Smith, who's at 170, or Jalen Waddle is at 185. This guy's under 160 pounds, maybe going to play in the NFL. I mean, look at Trinidad Holiday. He didn't exactly have a long and fruitful career, although that Tutu Atwell is a better player than Trinidad Holiday was. But that size just really isn't sustainable. You can't really get a durable player from someone like that. It's a huge concern, even though you do have a fairly good player. The catch radius and overall ability as a route runner is a little bit concerning, but the sky's the limit with the type of guy who is this major deep threat that does have pretty good hands if the ball is dropped in the bucket. It's just the big concern with him is no catch radius as well. So you're going to need the ball on the money, but he's got good ball tracking down the field. Tutu Atwell is an interesting player. It's really tough to project him. Another deep threat, dude, that's purely a deep threat who looked faster than everyone at UAB is Austin Watkins. He's got pretty good size for the position, though. I think he's a little over 6 feet. He could be good, but I think primarily he's only going to be a deep threat, and we have a lot of those in the NFL at the moment. And then Sage Surratt, another big jump ball receiver who was really good at Wake Forest because he could just go up and high point the football. Really good hands as well. He's going to be a good deep threat despite not having elite deep speed. But that rounds up my honorable mentions. We haven't even gotten into the top 16 yet. Number 16 is going to be Tamorrion Terry out of Florida State. He's a good player, right? I know Brett Coleman's super high on him. I'm not as high on Tamorrion Terry. I think he's a good player, and there definitely is a lot to like. First of all, he's a huge receiver with a massive catch radius when he decides to actually use his arms and his hands to make the catch. My big issue with him is he's a body catcher, and he's not someone that, from what I've seen, has been consistently able to go and high point the football. He waits for the ball to get to him a lot of the time, and he has strong hands, so it's a little peculiar. I think this can be a thing that can be coached out of him, but he's constantly trying to make these, over the shoulder type catches, and he waits for the ball to get into his body when he can just go up there and be bigger and taller than some of these DBs and just go up and make the catch. Obviously, there are times when you want them to make the over-the-shoulder catch and wait for the ball to drop in there, like on that play at the bottom of your screen. That's fantastic, but a lot of times in jump ball situations, Tamorrion Terry waits for the ball to come down instead of high pointing it, and he uses his body to catch it despite those strong hands, despite having big, strong hands that he showcases sometimes will, adjust to a ball that's maybe a little bit behind him on a shorter route. But down the field, sometimes you want him to go up and just body someone if you don't have the separation downfield. The good news is that he is elite at creating separation downfield. He's got great size, and his long strides allow him to create space and even set up DBs for under routes as well off the stem if he can come back to the football. So, having such long strides and being able to get down the field so quickly allows a lot underneath to be able to be set up on routes, depending if it's like, something over the middle, a dig coming back, or a comeback, something like that, is set up from his ability to sell double moves and get deep. So Tamorrion Terry, there is a lot to like. My main thing is just he can be a bit of a body catcher at times, and he's not a guy that consistently high points the football despite having the ability to. He just doesn't do it. So it's a little frustrating. Number 15 is going to be Amari Rodgers out of Clemson. There's a lot to like with Amari Rodgers, and you can really see it on this play. If I had to do a comp for him, and I don't really particularly love player comparisons, but I think Deebo Samuel stands out in particular. He's basically a running back playing slot receiver, and he's someone with particularly strong, reliable hands and the ability to create separation very easily from the slot, but also as a ball carrier, he runs like a back. He's built really, really compactly, and he's quite strong. So this is a guy who's after the catch really, really good. There's a lot to like with Amari Rodgers. Yeah, probably never going to be a big outside guy, but he's got good speed. He's fantastic after the catch, and being an easy separator from the slot with reliable hands is going to play on a lot of different offenses. Number 14 is going to be Kade Johnson, wide receiver out of South Dakota State, and a player that I'm really, really high on. Showing Senior Bowl footage here, which is going to be primarily against man coverage, whether that's, soft shoe or traditional press man. You're also going to see some reps where he's just playing with someone in off-man coverage, and he kind of just destroys all of it. His footwork is so good off the line. He has a number of different releases that he'll go to in order to create separation immediately, and he runs such strong, crisp routes, and he's just such an easy separator as a receiver. This is probably someone that, like Amari Rodgers, is going to be relegated to the slot, but I think he has the footwork capable of playing on the outside on occasion. The size is just the big thing that probably limits him from being a true outside receiver. The big thing, though, with Kade Johnson, other than route running, is his ability to catch poorly thrown balls. Consistently at South Dakota State, he is changing his body angle, showing great body control to adjust to a football not thrown well. He has a large catch radius for someone of his size and will consistently, routinely change that angle and go up and make a play. Soft, strong hands. Gotta love Kade Johnson. I know it's South Dakota State, but this is someone where this type of route running plays anywhere. Number 13 is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown out of USC. And I'll be honest, this is a player I was hoping to be a little bit higher on. When you watch him play, you go, oh man, this guy consistently pops up. He's always catching touchdowns. For example, in this game against Washington State, he had 4. But after doing like a big time review of Amon-Ra St. Brown, as I do with all these receivers and every player that I give an opinion on in the draft, he's just a good player. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I thought he might have been this dynamic player, but his speed isn't anything crazy. He's just another reliable chain mover with really good hands. He's got good body control as well, and he's a guy that does have the ability to high point the football. Strong hands, of course, as is the trend with a lot of these different receivers in this class. It's a guy that really isn't going to drop the ball very often. He's just a very good receiver. I think jack of all trades, master of none type, where he just is very good. He isn't great. I don't think he's dynamic. I think in the right offense as a receiver 2 or 3, I think this is a guy that can potentially line up in the slot. He's just going to be a really good player. I think he's got a super high floor. He's a good route runner with good hands. Doesn't drop the football. So there is a lot to like with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I was hoping for some dynamic stud, and you don't really see that type of a player. But of course, I'm talking down on him, it seems like. But I don't want that to be, how it comes off, because he is a very good player. It's just, he just isn't as dynamic as, I initially was hoping for. He's really good. He's going to be solid if I had to guess. But I don't ever think he's going to be some top 5, top 10, top 15 receiver in the league. Who knows, though? I mean, in the right offense, given the right amount of targets, who knows? Who knows? Because he is a guy like that on that play. Shows the hands late, DB can't make a play. Shows a great body control on hands to adjust to that football. I mean, it's just great all around. He's going to be very good. But, we'll have to see if he makes some sort of big jump. I'm just not sure we're ever going to see it. He's very good. Very good. But I don't know if he's ever going to be great. I think it depends on the offense and how he's utilized. But I think he's going to be a really solid wide receiver 2 or 3 or 4. Number 12 is a player that's a little bit forgotten about because he didn't play in 2020. He opted out. But it's Nico Collins out of Michigan. Another big-time deep threat. To me, he's like the upgraded version of Tamorrion Terry. And I think the big thing with him is even though he's this big-time, big deep threat receiver despite not having elite speed, he's got really good hands. Another guy that has great deep ball tracking that isn't going to drop the football. But at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, he shed, I think, 10 to 15 pounds and came out a lot more explosive and more dynamic. And if a player at his size, with his ability as a receiver, can drop weight while still staying this big-time strong receiver that can just out-body people and make big-time plays, if he can come out and be twitchy and explosive and even more athletic, you're going to get a really good player. And I'm not saying it's DK Metcalf, right? But it can be a DK Metcalf type player where he doesn't need this overly complicated route tree. It is a knock on, maybe how dynamic he can be. But if he can just run by you and go up and get the football and catch it over you, he's going to have a field day, which is what Nico Collins should be able to do. It's going to be different in the NFL, of course, but he has showcased that he has everything on tape, plus adding more explosiveness in the offseason over 2020 where he didn't play, and then showcase what he can do at the Senior Bowl. Nico Collins could be a really, really good player. Number 11 is Ronald Moore, and this is a super love-hate relationship because I have him way too low. But here's the thing with Rondale Moore is if you rank him purely as a receiver, I think he is going to be a little bit lower down a lot of receiver boards because, and we talk about it all the time, versatile weapon merch link in the description. But Rondale Moore is a versatile weapon where this is really just not a receiver. He is so dynamic with the football in his hands that you need to find any way possible to get him the football. He's going to make huge plays for you. Rondale Moore is super explosive. He's twitchy. And also, he runs really good routes. This is 2018 against Ohio State, and this is going to be just Rondale Moore having an absolute field day with Shaun Wade for 60 minutes. Shaun Wade doesn't have an answer, even in the slot, for anything that Rondale Moore does, and he's a particularly tough player to hang with because of how fast and explosive and twitchy and agile he is. His change of direction's next level. Rondale Moore is an amazing athlete with really good route running from the slot, and he's really, really good with the football. But the major downside with Rondale Moore is his ability as a receiver. He's someone who just doesn't routinely catch the football. There are major drop concerns. He will catch with his body a lot. And for tough catches, a lot of the time, Rondale Moore just won't catch it. There are concentration drops as well. And if he does make a tough catch, it's never clean. It's almost always a bobble. And where you can get away with some of that in college, guys are on you in the NFL. You're taking more licks in the NFL, and it's tough to hold on to the ball if you bobble it. It really is. His hands just aren't particularly strong, and even though he does make some nice catches, he uses his body, and he traps the football in there, and that is a concern. He is so good with the football. Any offense that takes Rondale Moore is just going to have to find a way to get him the ball because he's just not a guy that can be this down-the-field guy, and make all these tough catches. He showcases the ability to. I think he's got really small hands, and it limits him from catching the football. He's only about 5'7" or so. He's so fun to watch, but as a true receiver, it's going to be a little bit tough to move him up the board. I think he probably is going to be a top 50 player in the draft very easily, probably even a little bit higher than that. But it's just if you rank him as a true receiver, he's got to be further down the board. This is going to be interesting because when I come out with my big board, I might have Rondale Moore ranked a little bit higher than some of these receivers ahead of him just because of how I value him as a total player in the total package. He's going to be an instant value as a returner right away. But as a true receiver, I don't know. It's kind of a tough projection to make. How do you value him as an overall player versus in the actual receiver rankings? There is the argument, though, that like if you value him as a player above some of these other guys, just move him up. It's tough to do. It's a really strong class. It's a really strong receiver class. As we move on to, again, one of my players that was on the underrated list, and that is Dwayne Eskridge out of Western Michigan. Man, I love Dwayne Eskridge. We're going to check him out in the Senior Bowl. Another guy that was just explosive as hell in college and showcased really, really good route running at the Senior Bowl as well. But on tape, he's a guy that played on the outside a little bit, was also a big-time guy in the slot. He's got elite speed and also can catch the football. I think, everyone's freaking out about Rondale Moore, who is a better mover. Dwayne Eskridge is not as agile or even close to Rondale Moore in that regard. But they've got similar speed. They've got similar big-time playability. And Dwayne Eskridge has excellent hands. He's got better size as well. He just doesn't really drop the ball too much. There were some times at Western Michigan where he has a concentration drop or two, or maybe it's a tough play off a tip where you want him to go and catch the ball when it lands in his hands off a tipped pass, and he just doesn't do it. But overall, and especially what he showcased in Mobile, this is a guy that has a extremely large catch radius, really good routes, and really strong hands. He has great body control to adjust the football if it isn't perfect. Dwayne Eskridge is a really tough player not to love. There just are some of those instances where he will drop the ball when you expect him to make the play, like right there, like the play before. The hands generally are quite good, but there are some concentration drops, and there are some occasional drops through contact. That's a concentration drop where I think you can coach that up. But overall, he makes really tough plays look really easy. He's a guy who can get down the field really easy, and he's a guy with the football in his hands. That's a big play waiting to happen. Shout out Brad Kelly for the Senior Bowl content. Number 9 is a player I just absolutely love, and that's Daimion Brown out of UNC. And if I absolutely love him, why do I have him so far down the list at number 9? He's an exceptional route runner. Here's a little bit of the problem, though, as a route runner, is his route tree is fairly limited And even though he's exceptional, in my opinion, at running the routes that he was running at UNC, his route tree wasn't anything crazy. He didn't have a lot of branches, off the stem, if you will. But even look at this play. I mean, as one of the best pure deep threats in the draft, you're going to see Daimion Brown here against soft shoe, soft man coverage, and he's going to set him up with a half step, and he already beats him. That's what happens on this play. It's like a stutter half step. DB slows down, and he's already past you. Has the ability to accelerate with the deep speed to get by and stay by most DBs in the draft and most DBs that he played against in college. Even if they weren't draft eligible, kind of misspoke there a little bit. But he's an exceptional deep route runner. He's got good hands as well. My big concern, other than the fairly limited route tree that Daimion Brown ran at UNC, is through contact, he's just not a particularly strong player. And whether that's increasing his functional strength as he becomes an older guy and gets into the NFL, maybe he could develop as a guy that can play stronger through contact. But despite having pretty good size, about 6'1", isn't a guy that plays particularly tall. He isn't a guy that plays particularly strong or big. And most 50-50 balls I found he's not coming down with. And if you're not coming down with the 50-50 balls in college, you're probably not going to catch that rate or higher in the NFL. It's just not going to happen unless he increases his play strength. And he's a guy like Tamorrion Terry that really isn't using those hands to go up and catch the football routinely. He is waiting for it to come down, but he's impossible not to like as a route runner. They're so crisp, so sharp routes. He has a great feel for zone coverage, and he is consistently working back towards the quarterback to make the throws a lot easier. He's pretty good after the catch as well. The only thing as a route runner, when you're talking about him working back to the quarterback, sometimes he works back a little bit too far, but it works out a lot of the time. He can work back up the field after making these catches. I love Daimion Brown. I wish he played a little bit bigger, but he's a really, really good deep threat with really good routes for the route tree that he does run. Daimion Brown is so good. I think the best word I can use to describe him is sudden. He's just explosive in and out of his breaks. He just is a little bit of a body catcher, and I think his limited route tree could be a bit of a hurdle as he maybe takes on a more advanced one at the next level, depending on what team he goes to. But I think sky's the limit for him. He's a super sharp route runner. He's got great nuanced routes and great moves to set up DBs. I think Daimion Brown's going to be really good. Number 8 is going to be Tylan Wallace. I feel like a player a lot of people just forgot about, and I don't know why. Tylan Wallace is really, really good. Easy, fluid route runner. It is a pretty good separator generally. The biggest standout point to me about Tylan Wallace is showcased right on that play. His body control is elite. He has exceptional hands. I think some of the strongest hands in the class. We keep saying that, but he just doesn't drop the football. He's a good run blocker and can finish DBs regularly. It seems like he takes a lot of pride as a blocker, which is kind of nice. And he's really his best with the football in the air. I feel like 50-50 balls for Tylan Wallace are 80-20 balls, and we're going to say that about the next guy on the list as well. But he just has such great feel as a receiver where he's showing the hands late. DBs can't make a play, and his hands are so good that he's going to come down with the football. And the body control, the ability to high point the football, it's all top tier for Tylan Wallace. And he has his technique of catching the football where if he gets on the sideline, he's almost fooling the DB to changing their leverage as he maybe shifts to the left and explodes to the right if he's going to catch the ball in that way. And it sets up a lot of just sneaky extra yards after catch. I will say, though, he's not the fastest guy in the world, even though he's a decent deep threat. Faster, big corners can smother him in press coverage. He does his best against off man. If he could beat press more routinely, I think he'd be a little bit higher up on this list. But Tylan Wallace overall is just a really, really good receiver. There is so much to like. He plays super strong and aggressive, and he can play through contact with the best of them. Tylan Wallace is an elite receiver prospect, despite not getting nearly any first-round buzz at all. This should be a player that goes on day 2 at the latest. Number 7 is going to be Terrace Marshall out of LSU, and there is so much to like with Terrace Marshall. When I say a guy doesn't drop the football, maybe they have 1 or 2 drops in there over the tape I've seen at most. Terrace Marshall does not drop the football. He's super big. He's got an extremely large catch radius, and he's explosive enough to get in out of break, sink his hips, and come back on, some of these comeback routes and things over the middle and to the side, these in or out breaking routes that aren't going down the field. But down the field is where he does his best work. Down the field, he has long strides that really make the DB have to commit deep, because if they don't, they're going to get cooked, and that leaves up stuff underneath open all the time. He's great after the catch. I love Terrace Marshall. I've written down that 50-50 balls are 90-10 balls. Throw it up to Terrace Marshall, and he will come down with it. He's fantastic. He's also a good route runner as well. He has a lot of double moves to set up DBs, the same way that a Tamori and Terry does. He's a really good deep route runner, and he has these hesitation stutter half steps, the way we talked about with Daimion Brown, that he's exceptional at using as well. It's really tough not to like Terrace Marshall as well. Maybe a bit overshadowed at LSU with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase there, but as the only guy there in 2020, he shined. He was just phenomenal. He also does have a lot of slot experience as a bigger receiver, which is particularly weird. That creates a lot of mismatches in there as well. And to me, his short area quickness isn't anything spectacular, but it definitely isn't bad. It's really tough to find weak points with Terrace Marshall. He isn't the most explosive or the quickest guy or the best route runner, but he is still quite good in those regards. I think maybe the only big thing is he's not a tremendous run blocker despite having the size, and he doesn't really come back to the football quite enough sometimes, and I think that makes some of these catches a little bit tougher when he waits, but his hands are so good that it really isn't a problem. He's a really, really good player, and that's why he's coming in at number 7 on my list. To the guys that love Rondale Moore, you better love Elijah Moore. I think he pretty much has everything Rondale Moore has to offer, but better. I think he's as good, if not better, of a route runner. His routes are exceptional. You're going to see a play here in a second that really showcases that. But he's also so good after the catch as well. He's built similarly to a guy like Amari Rodgers or Deebo Samuel, who we talked about. He's a little shorter, definitely a little stockier, but he's built kind of like a running back. And he's certainly explosive. He's got 4.3 speed, and he showcases it routinely. He is polished as a route runner as well. Showcases quick and sudden feet, is able to sink his hips and come back to the ball. But he's also a guy who's just adept at running deep down the field as well. Sets up DBs. He's a mismatch for any safety because he's way faster than any safety he's going to go up against. And he is nuanced as a route runner as well. This is just a great example of it, where he just completely sells a slant, and then it's a sluggo, slant and go, and he's up the field. It's a bad throw. Otherwise, it's a touchdown. And he does that just all the time. Sure, he is force-fed the football at Ole Miss. He is the Ole Miss offense, but he's just really, really good as a route runner. As we talked about, that is going to play at the next level. He's a guy that should be able to move all the way around, a guy that probably can come in for a few handoffs a game as well, work him on jet sweeps, screens. He's going to be great in that regard, but also as an every down slot receiver, he should be exceptional. He's got really good hands, and he's a guy that plays above his size. You see a lot of these receivers, like a Rondale Moore type, that really, their catch radius isn't anything spectacular. Rondale Moore's got a pretty good big catch radius, and he plays way bigger than his size with the ball in the air. Again, I don't like these player comps for one reason or another, but with Rondale Moore, he really does remind me of Steve Smith Sr. in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying Elijah Moore is going to be the next great, potential Hall of Fame receiver like Steve Smith Sr. was. But he's got some dog in him, man. He's feisty out there. He will get in your face as a run blocker against bigger defenders. He plays with a big chip on his shoulder. His change of direction is phenomenal. There's so much to love about Elijah Moore. He just plucks the football out of the air. He is so polished as a receiver. His big weakness is he's got less than ideal size. He's 5'9", and that's maybe even a little bit generous. It might be 5'8", 5'8.5". He is 185 pounds, though. He's built stock. He's built big. I don't really think durability is going to be a problem. His arm length isn't crazy, and his catch radius isn't crazy because of that, but his catch radius is still large because of his just twitchy movement, and he's able to get to these balls and adjust the way other players just aren't able to. And even though his catch radius, which we keep talking about, he plays above his size, his arms are a little bit short, and on routes where the ball is not floating in the air, it is a little bit tougher to adjust to those. So if there's a slant that's misthrown, he's not always able to adjust to the ball. but he is so good after the catch. He's got great hands. His big thing is probably going to be relegated, to slot only. Not really going to be an outside guy because of that size, but the route running, the hands, the explosiveness, the athleticism, the deep speed, they're all there. Elijah Moore is a really good player. Another guy that should probably go round 1, but might not. Big steal in the second. Number 5 is Kadarius Toney, and Kadarius Toney is so unique. He will make you miss in an unbelievable way. I can't even say it enough, and this play is a good example of it. Kadarius Toney has the most elusiveness I've ever seen from probably any player. I mean, it reminds you of stuff that Dante Hall was capable of doing. Kadarius Toney is just ridiculous with the football in his hands, and even without it as well. He's an exceptional route runner. He just moves in ways that other guys can't move. And he's not even particularly small. He's 5'11". He's built kind of like Santonio Holmes. And he's just, I don't want to say it because of Kyle Pitts, right? But he's a versatile weapon where this is a guy that can come out of the backfield. He's a guy that can come in the slot. He can play on the outside. And he's just so refined as a route runner and as a receiver, and he just moves different. That's really the best way I can say it. His catch radius is large. He showcases the ability to go outside of his frame and adjust to poorly thrown balls. He's got excellent athleticism. I mean, I really can't tell you how fun of a player Kadarius Toney is. He's just different. That's what it comes down to. He is just different. Great route runner, great hands, and the best player with his football in his hands I've seen since highlight to Barry Sanders. I mean, Kadarius Toney is just ridiculous. He's strong through traffic. He can catch the ball through traffic. He's not dropping it when he gets absolutely destroyed by a hit. Kadarius Toney is just something else. And he's something special, and he's going to be a really good player. I don't think he has to be slot relegated. He's a player I think that can play on the outside. His route running ability showcases that he's able to. His hands are fairly good to beat press when they need to be. Now, the hands were a little bit of a concern at the Senior Bowl, which I keep going back to. The Senior Bowl, I think it tells a lot. Terry McLaurin was unguardable at the Senior Bowl, and we've seen what he's capable of doing in the NFL so far. Hands were a bit of a concern at the Senior Bowl, but I didn't see anything on tape that suggested poor hands ever. They seem reliable, and I will say if he's not involved in the progression, he's probably going to take the play off, so you don't love to see that. The high effort isn't always on display if he's not in the progression, but I mean, I don't really see that as a big enough weakness to overlook this guy. But for a guy that moves as crazy as he does, I don't think the fact that he isn't elite with his hands is anything crazy. Like, he does use them to beat press sometimes, but that's not really routine. And he's probably just going to be a primary slot guy. Despite having the route running ability, we don't really know how he's going to fare against press routinely. So Kadarius Toney is just special. Hopefully I didn't seem to contradict myself too much there, because he does show the ability to beat press sometimes with his hands, but it's usually with his feet. I think press could be a potential problem if he was going to be an outside guy, which I don't think he's going to be. Kadarius Toney is just ridiculous. He's got to be a first-round talent. He has immediate value as a returner, but I think he's got a tremendous immediate value as a receiver, and just as a guy that you need to scheme the football into his hands. You can work around Toney. He's that unbelievable as a player. Got to be a first-round talent. Kadarius Toney is just built different. That's just what it comes down to. Number 4 is Rashod Bateman. It's frustrating with the Rashod Bateman because people seem to be lower on him than is well warranted. Rashod Bateman's really good. He's got great size for the position, and he is an easy, fluid route runner as well. Similarly to a guy like Tylan Wallace, Rashod Bateman is just a really good route runner. His body control is exceptional. His hands are exceptional. And he is another one of these 50-50 guys that it seems more like 80-20s. He's quick out of breaks, quick feet, does well to sink his hips at the top of the appropriate routes, when he's coming back to the football or working over the middle or to the outside. He's good at using his hands at the top of the route or at the top of the stem to create extra space. Really, really good at that in the way that you see Jamar Chase do that all the time. And he just consistently manages to separate and get open. He's got tremendous sideline awareness. There's a ton to love with Rashod Bateman. Sometimes against press, he will not beat it. I don't think his speed's anything crazy. I know he ran crazy at his pro day, He doesn't play quite that fast, and he really isn't particularly good after the catch. There are some occasional concentration drops, but his hands are extremely reliable in general, and his run blocking usually is not quite good. You see him run blocking fine on that play. Does pretty well, actually, but it's usually not anything crazy. But there's so much love with Rashod Bateman. You get size, pretty good speed, great route running, great hands. Recipe for a first-round pick. Rashod Bateman should be taken in the first round. And now to make people mad. Number 3 is Devonta Smith, and there really isn't anything to not like with Devonta Smith, honestly, besides his weight. There are durability concerns because of that, but he plays strong, he plays big, and he doesn't really get knocked off the line in press. You think because of his low weight that press coverage would be a big issue, but his feet are so good off the line that the DBs just can't get his hands on him. He's arguably the best route runner in the class. He has really good, solid, reliable hands, and he's a great athlete. He's explosive. He's good after the catch because he's shifty. And when you factor in how good he is as a route runner, how good his hands are, he can play big despite not being a particularly big receiver. 6'1", like reportedly like 160, 165, 170. He's not big, but he plays big. He gets open. He is an easy separator, and he's just a really, really, really good player. You don't need me to tell you that. You know he won the Heisman. Tremendous stats. Stats don't tell the full story with prospects, though. And even though Devonta Smith is the Heisman winner, doesn't make him a great prospect. He just happens to be one. Not every Heisman guy is a great prospect. Devonta Smith is a great prospect, though. If you can get over the weight concerns, which you should be able to because of what he can do on tape against professional level competition, he's just unreal. And another guy that should be a top 15 pick in the draft, should easily go in the first round, could be a top 10 pick. He's that good of a player. I think we all know that at this point. And as I mentioned with this receiver class, at this point, you really can't go wrong. The top 3 are so good. But number 2 for me is Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is the strongest receiver in the class. He is the most physical receiver in the class while still possessing really good athleticism. Now, I know he ran really well. He doesn't play quite that fast on tape, even though he does showcase the explosiveness to beat press, especially with his hands, and then stack and get over the top. Jamar Chase is a really, really good prospect. He's got exceptional hands, and he's another guy with when the football's in the air, he does his best work. He has some of these really sneaky moves. I wonder if we can see it from the end zone view. You can see slightly. He's going to push on the hips of the corner and create extra separation. And I'm going to tell you there's no referee in the game that's ever going to call offensive pass interference when Jamar Chase pushes the corner's waist. It's just not going to happen. It's very subtle, and he has a lot of these subtle moves to create extra separation when the ball's already in the air. Jamar Chase is incredible. He's nuanced as a receiver, and his hand fighting is so fun to watch, especially at the top of his routes, and as well as a release point to create extra space. Jamar Chase is just phenomenal. He's a monster through contact, and he's a monster after the catch as well. I think he is everything that you like about Rashod Bateman, plus he can beat press, plus he's unbelievable after the catch. He's like a Rashod Bateman on steroids type of thing. Jamar Chase is really, really good. His effort when he is involved in the progression can be a little bit low at times. He's taking plays off if he's not involved in the progression. And he's not really going to run by you with speed as a route runner. You're going to see him at the top of your screen here. This is probably going to be a run, so it's not even going to really be relevant. Oh, it isn't, but it's a short screen to Terrace Marshall. Anyway, Jamar Chase is faster with the football. He gets into an extra gear. I'm not sure why the speed isn't there off the snap because he is explosive. It's a little bit weird. But he's still a really, really good, borderline like perfect style prospect as a receiver. He is just phenomenal. Will drop the ball with a concentration drop from time to time. Did so against Utah State. It's not really a concern. His hands are super, super strong. And it's just the physicality, the aggression, and being nuanced as a route runner and with the football in the air, it makes Jamar Chase so good. Should be a top 10 player off the board. He is just an unbelievable talent. He has so many varied creative releases, whether it's a stretch release, maybe it's a hesitation stutter, maybe it's just using his hands to get by you with a swipe. Chase is a stud. I made an entire video about why Jalen Waddle is receiver 1 in this class months ago. You may or may not have seen that video. But after doing more advanced tape studies of Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith and the rest of the receiver class, I was even more convinced. Jalen Waddle is dynamic. He is arguably the fastest receiver in the class. He can absolutely fly. He is polished, crisp, and nuanced as a route runner, but he's also exceptional through contact. He can play like a 6'5" receiver with the ball in his hands. He just goes up and gets it. This is bracket coverage down the field. Safety destroys him as he catches the football, as the ball's in the air. As soon as Jalen Waddle makes contact with the football, safety makes contact with him. Cornerback comes from behind. Guess what? Doesn't matter. Jalen Waddle's going to catch the football anyways. He is just fantastic. And when you bring out the route running of a guy like Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle is professional as a route runner. You bring the hands of a guy like Jamar Chase, even though he's not as physical at the catch point or at the top of routes, but Jalen Waddle can go up there and catch the football and hold on to it through contact. And you bring out the movement ability of a guy like Kadarius Toney in this class. Jalen Waddle is just, he's got to be receiver 1 in this class for me. You bring out the route running, the play strength when the football is in the air, the ability to go up and catch the ball through contact, the ability to just flat out run by bracket coverage and double teams. It's tough to miss with a guy like Jalen Waddle. There is the potential injury concern because he did have an ankle injury. There's no reason to believe that that would be a nagging injury. It shouldn't be nearly as tough to come back from an ACL tear. And it's just an ankle, a broken ankle for Jalen Waddle. There is no reason to think that he won't come back, at least as strong as he was before. And he was a really, really good player. People want to point to the stats, say Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith is better, and you are certainly fine to have that opinion. They're both very, very good players, but stats don't tell the full story. You got to look at the tape, and Jalen Waddle's tape is as good, if not better, and in my opinion, better than any other receiver in the class. If it's receiver 1A, 1B, 1C, I think Jalen Waddle is receiver 1A. And even though he might not be a guy that's going to play on the outside, although there's no reason to believe he can't, you think maybe press coverage could be a problem, but he beats that routinely when he's on the outside. He's going to be a monster from the slot. I just think he is an incredible prospect. And even if Jalen Waddle isn't some guy that's going to catch 100 balls a year for 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns, what he will do for the rest of the offense with his speed to make the DBs back up and stretch the field like Henry Ruggs did for the Raiders last year and Nelson Aguilar broke out, like John Brown was able to do for the Bills, and Stephon Diggs had a great year, even though he's a really good player. Anyways, his speed makes a lot of things a lot easier for the entire offense because DBs have to respect the speed, because if they don't, they're going to be torched over the top. I love Jalen Waddle. It should be no surprise that he's receiver 1, but I genuinely feel that he is the best receiver in the class. But that is going to do it for ranking the top 16 and then plus a couple extra, more than a couple extra receivers in the class. I know most people are probably gone now. I want to talk quickly about Josh Imatorbhebhe. He's a big jump ball receiver, great athlete, not really defined as a route runner or refined as a route runner. So he's kind of a tough projection. Daz Newsome, I think, is another great guy. We talked about Daimion Brown at UNC. Daz Newsome's also another really good slot receiver at UNC. There are just way too many receivers in this class to mention. There's so many good ones. I want to talk about Whop Philyor. I want to talk about so many different guys. Amir Marset out of Iowa, I think, is a pretty good player. This class is so strong at receiver. There are going to be steals on day 2 and day 3 very easily. I have no doubt in my mind about that. It's just such a strong class, but there are too many to talk about for just a top 15. This is basically like a top 20 or 25 with all the receivers I named. But hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. Tell me in the comment section below how stupid I am for my list, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.
Insane, I hit it at the park, Ben Bones. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game, Nintendo.